Hey guys, welcome back to the Nexvia AI Podcast. I'm Michael Smith, and I'm really excited about today's guest because you guys who know me, I'm really into wellness and fitness, and it's really what I love about Laura is she's bringing really a whole new approach to how I think we think about movement and health because it's just so much more comprehensive and well-rounded. Lara Heimann is the founder of LYT Yoga, a method rooted really in functional movement, neurology, which is cool, and we'll get a bit more into your background, sustainable wellness. So I just love that you are really on a mission to bring health and wholeness to people's lives. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your story. I always just love hearing how people, most of us in a health and wellness space aren't necessarily entrepreneurial minded in that that's not what we had in our head. So I'm curious to hear really how you got to where you are today. So let's take us back a little bit. When you think back to when you started Lit Yoga or even before, what was happening at that time that made you feel like this was the right move for you?
Hmm. Well, I think we would have to start before that, and that I became a physical therapist, and then after grad school, I I got my postgraduate specialization in neurology, neurodevelopmental training,
Okay.
which is really neuroplasticity. And I loved that so much. And then I was also teaching, I'd always been a teacher of fitness ever since I was in college. And I had found yoga at the same time that when I graduated from grad school and I was teaching it, but I was kind of keeping them in separate lanes. And what I started to realize is that there was this gap that needed to be bridged. In other words, I was doing all this work with neurologically impaired clients to improve their neuroplasticity, create new wiring for the brain for areas of the body that had lost some motor function, and it was so powerful and empowering.
Yeah.
And then I would go and work with, quote, able-bodied clients, but everyone has some kind of imbalance. Just in a modern day lifestyle, it happens.
Yeah.
Once we start sitting in chairs for 8 hours a day, and then you go to college and then, or go right to work, after high school, whatever it is, most people are quite sedentary. And that really brings a lot of imbalance to all the different systems in the body. We know that. We don't just look at the musculoskeletal system. It impacts our nervous system and impacts our digestive system, et cetera. And so I thought, well, why aren't I bringing some of this? Everyone can benefit.
Yeah.
Our brains are always changing if we give the input in there that is necessary to challenge it and create better, improved pathways. Whether it's thinking, we know all about how crossword
Right.
puzzles or playing a musical instrument or learning a different language, how that really helps grow the density of these neuronal connections. But movement does it too. In fact, organisms that have a brain move, and movement is what grew our brain in those very early developmental years. So I just started positing, like, well, what would it be like if I brought some of this information, physical therapy, neurology, into the yoga space, specifically because I was teaching
Yeah.
that, and taught people more about how to move and improve their movement patterns, improve that neuromuscular connection in the class itself. So it wasn't just like a drop in, move around, feel refreshed and great, but then go back and it's like start all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really, I think, how a lot of people as entrepreneurs start off. It's like I used to say I was a reluctant entrepreneur. Now I just say I was an accidental entrepreneur. I think that's a more positive
Yeah.
spin.
Yeah.
But certainly did not have any background in business. I never intended to have my own business. I just saw a need, and I think again that's where entrepreneurs had that common thread. Is there was a need for more education because people are moving their bodies, but unfortunately, most people, very few people, unless they've gone to PT school or med school or something, have learned about the anatomy of the body, about the anatomy is the inner workings of the body. So it includes, the way we move, the way we breathe, the way we regulate our nervous system, the way our brain dictates and biases,
Okay.
patterns of movement. So all of that kind of came together. And so I started experimenting. And then when I left a clinical setting, I just opened up a little studio in my house. I had a separate building, and I had people were wanting to come. I had had my first child, and I decided not to go back into the clinic. So it was kind of a perfect breeding ground for starting this little movement that then became LYT. And so it really started with, 5 people at a time in these small groups, but I got to use them almost as a laboratory. They were growing and learning, and I was getting information on what landed, what didn't land. And then that really expanded. We built our second house, and I built a bigger studio to accommodate 10 people. And then that just, I kind of like rocketed overnight, the demand. Because once I got to 10 people in a class, I started teaching 15 to 18 classes a week.
Wow.
People were still wanting more. They wanted to bring their friends. And then really the key to again opening something brick and mortar and making it a brand. Before that, I wasn't calling it anything. Was some of my clients said, "You can't go away on vacation because I don't feel comfortable going anywhere else." And I thought, well, you know,
That's
that's
a problem.
that's a problem. And they weren't exaggerating. They really felt that way. And whether it was,
Yeah.
you know, really true or not, that I started to realize what I needed to do was share this education and knowledge and be able to distill it to a point that anyone, they don't have to be PT, but they're interested in teaching this movement practice, they can learn and they can teach from that elevated, confident position, because then they're passing on that knowledge to their students.
Right.
And so I created a teacher training. And then with that, it's like one thing just spilled to another. I was like, well, if I have a teacher training, I'm going to have people graduating. I need a place for them to teach. I opened up a studio. And so that's really where kind of the LYT brand came about. It was not accidental. It was very intentional, but just following one need after another until it just naturally landed in this place where I could teach people myself. I could teach teachers. The other thing I wanted to do, which I saw that was missing, is having a quality control. So you might go to a gym or a yoga studio or somewhere and really like one teacher, but you go back the next day and there's a different teacher who's teaching very differently. You may or may not like them. They're saying different things, maybe. And you can't really build a good business off of that.
Yeah.
So I wanted the quality control of everyone that taught at my studio had to be taught in my in the LYT training and had to go through it because it's really a robust training. And that just immediately brought such an elevated level of quality control that I think a lot of people were searching for.
So you might have started off accidentally, something I can 100% relate to as a health professional. That was not anywhere in my world. But what seems pretty clear is that very early on, you were quite intentional once you realized that there was a need. What do you during your journey, or even now, maybe even now, it'd be interesting. Like, what do you think, what has been harder than you expected it to be during your journey, your entrepreneurial journey?
I think that what's has always been the hard is the stuff that I don't like, right? If I
Right.
just could
Yeah.
teach and educate and create, like I love creating. It's my canvas. Like
Hmm.
I love creating all types of classes, shorter, specific for athletes, specific for menopausal women, adding weights, I love it. I have an online platform with thousands of classes, and that is like my joy space. The hard stuff is doing the necessary business marketing, just advertising that is required if you have a
Yeah.
business. And it's hard. It's not gotten less hard, but I've gotten better at identifying what I really dislike and how I can find
Yeah.
somebody who does it better. And so I think that's, I always say anybody starting off, the minute you can start to pay somebody else to do
Hmm.
things that are not in your wheelhouse, that really drag your energy, because that I think is the key for success, is the endurance. A lot of people can be excited about launching a product or starting a business because they have a passion for it. And then the reality sets in and it's much more challenging. So it's challenging for all of us. And the key is to try and offload the things that really suck your energy and the joy. And so
Yeah.
I'm at a less hard place now for sure, because I'm over a decade in. And it's changed too. I had a studio and I had teachers and I had, studio workers, managers, and all that. And that was kind of different. And it was very front facing and all that. And then I created an online platform to accommodate all the people that were traveling to my workshops or my retreats from different areas in the country and around the world. And then I did an online teacher training. And then all of that went virtual once COVID hit, which was in many ways I loved. I
Right.
missed parts of the having the community, but it was a relief, honestly, because there's so much involved when you have a brick and mortar. And just to offload that really helped out a lot. So the needs have changed because of the different environments, but that hardness is always related to the business. How do you grow it? I think the hard part for a lot of people is you can love something and be so passionate, but then you're like, God, I have to go out and tell people about it. And I have to like sell,
Right.
selling is just, there's people that are maybe born salespeople, but there's a
Hmm.
lot of people who dislike it. And what I've found is if you just talk about what you love, that's kind of a form of getting that information out there that one could call selling. So I think the hard thing too is being it hasn't been hard for me, but in a business way, it automatically is challenging, is staying very clear and always connected to your core values and then speaking from that. So, I've hired marketing companies in the past and they're like, oh, do this and talk about your morning routine. And I'm like, that is just not me. I'm not, that's,
Right.
I don't care if I get 500 more people, that's just not very authentic. So I think part of the hard thing too is even if other people are telling you something that might be more successful, if it doesn't really vibe, being having the courage and the clarity to just know that that's not going to be good for you.
I think more today than ever, authenticity
Hmm.
is just critically important, both for ourselves as entrepreneurs, but I think more and more people are looking for that. And one thing that struck me is I think we can't really overestimate the importance of giving ourselves the space to focus on our superpowers. And as entrepreneurs, we're oftentimes feeling like we have to do everything and be in the middle of everything. Like when it comes to, I mean, the main thing that we have to do is getting in front of the right people at the right time. Like also known as marketing. Like what are your main channels that you are using now, even if it's handled by somebody else that you're using to get the word out about the yoga?
Well, I can tell you social media is our biggest channel, mainly because, and this was true at the studio as well, and I always come back to it when I start spending too much money on other areas, is that our word of mouth is super powerful. And
Hmm.
so, using social media just to kind of showcase the and give ourselves authority in this space, that in wellness and in movement in particular, um, and then just spreading it from there. And we have some natural disciples who do that as well, and that's always great
Yeah.
for word of mouth. That has been probably our biggest success, is from social media and word of mouth.
Hmm. I've certainly found, in addition, that one of the, as we were talking a little bit before, one AI is just something that intrigues me. I'm not really so concerned about it replacing me or replacing things I
I'm
love
not either.
doing. Or,
We're not at
yeah,
all.
I mean,
No, no.
yeah. But it does give us like the capability oftentimes to not have to focus on things that we don't like getting the word out. And there are just so many tools now that allow us to connect with people in a way that will move the conversation forward so that they then get to me. Like to me, I find that so intriguing that it can do that so effectively, much more
So effectively.
than
It's kind
me.
of crazy, and it's crazy and scary, but it's amazing,
Yeah.
that AI can get to know the brand and the language,
Hmm.
and work from there. And the time it can save is just, it's mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
And but you're right, like AI is not going to ever replace me teaching and me educating, but
Hmm.
it certainly can help with all that, the tedium stuff that can take up a lot of time, whether it's like help me, help me come up with a good, a workshop price for this area
Yeah.
with this population. It can that and it spits it out in 5 seconds versus me going around being
Right.
like, "What are people charging in this area?" It's just little questions like that that, it just is a big time saver, and I think that's important for people to use and have, AI help you in that regard. All those
Yeah.
things that just take up a lot of time, research, and you can get it spit back out to you.
It really is just like an assistant, as
Yeah.
if, you talk. It's so funny. I find myself talking to my AI tools just
Yeah.
like a person because that's how it learns best from what I'm looking for.
What
So
AI
I,
tools, I'm curious, what ones do you
yeah.
use?
So I use certainly something like ChatGPT as a mainstay
Yeah.
every day, but I use a lot of tools that even allow me to, identify ideal candidates for what I'm working on, send email communications out to them, but in a voice that is
Yeah.
mine,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's learned who I am, how I speak, and a voice that's mine. So if I had to reach out to these people, thousands of people, literally,
Yeah.
because that's what
Yeah.
AI can do, thousands of people, and have those back and forth conversations and lining up calls for either someone, a guest on a podcast, or someone to explore AI solutions. That would be a full-time job of me and probably a whole team of people. And granted, that's one place probably AI is replacing a little bit of people because you'd have to spend so much. It wouldn't even be possible. I wouldn't even be able to communicate that magnitude without those tools. So I think those kind of tools to me, and even just like it's able to automatically put schedules on my calendar, like meetings on my
Yeah.
calendar. Like
Incredible.
it's
Yeah. It
yeah,
is. It's
pretty
like having
amazing.
a virtual assistant, and
Yeah,
that gets to know you really well. So
yeah,
you don't even
yeah.
have to have that extra time of like, does this person recognize all the my traits
Right.
and the things that matter to me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, teachers, or I mean, I don't even know if they need to currently be yoga teachers. I would imagine that would be your main target. Like, what are you doing to connect with people who because obviously people to do your programs, et cetera, makes sense. But what about those looking to maybe teach your programs? How are you reaching out to even let them know what you're doing to see if it would be of interest to them?
That's a great question that we are actually contending with right now. Because during COVID, it was like we had hundreds of people in one of, and our online program is a 10-week, and it's guided, meaning like we would have Zoom calls where we have questions answered,
Okay.
go over some things, and that meets the criteria for getting a certification by the accrediting board. We also have a self-guided, which is really great for people who just want to understand functional anatomy, kinesiology more. And so that could be a yoga teacher, that could be a personal trainer,
Sure.
a Pilates instructor. And right now we're kind of we're we're getting people who have known another teacher and all that. We haven't really found a great way we've done some lookalike audiences, but those are not necessarily as
What does that mean? Lookalike audience.
so when you run like a Facebook, a meta ad, you can put in the people that are in your training and have lookalike audiences.
Oh,
So
I
people,
gotcha.
and that just gives you a bigger pool of people because they're interested potentially in the same thing
Right.
versus just kind of putting it out there with an SEO charge of yoga teacher training, which
Mm,
is a pretty big space,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but we're probably just like everyone else. We're working on fine tuning that because it would be great for if AI could figure that out for us, and how to because if you're going to do an ad spend, you don't want to just put out a huge net. You want to
Hmm.
there can be a lot of people that are interested in yoga, some interested in becoming a teacher, some interested in advancing their knowledge, similar with a personal trainer or other kind of movement professional. But yeah, if they don't, that this is the golden rule in marketing. If they don't know about you, it doesn't matter how
Right.
wonderful your product is. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we're experimenting. So if you have any ideas,
Yeah, I
please.
mean, actually, AI can. One of the things from an ad perspective that AI can do is it can run 10 ads at the same time, and
Yeah,
it can real time analyze the performance of all of those ads and maximize those that are performing well and minimize those that are not. Again, people can do that, but it would
yeah,
take a whole team of people to do that. So it can do that and communicate out in other ways. So yeah, we can share some ideas on that.
yeah.
Like get out your little magic wand. Like if you could fix one part of your workflow or process, which part do you think you would tackle first? What's your bottleneck in all the like the marketing and getting the word out and connecting with those people?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it there. I mean, our workflow in terms of once people sign up for a free trial, for instance, on our online platform, we have a really great workflow. Right now, our conversion rate is the highest it's ever been. In our industry,
Nice.
converting people from trials to becoming members is quite low. It's less than 20%. And we are up at 80%, which is huge. So
Wow.
we
Yeah.
figured out like what we're doing is working really well. So the bottleneck is again, the exposure to more people that kind of fit our customer
Hmm.
personally. And so, yeah, that's figuring that out and not trying to spend a lot of money doing that.
Is there a when you say fit your customer, is there a profile of that person that you feel
We have
like
a
could you
couple, yeah.
describe that person?
So we have a few. I would say a big pool of people, say 50% or more, are aged 40 to 65 women
Hmm. Okay.
who are professionals who spend money on themselves, believe in wellness and spending money on themselves. And that is our target. I mean, they just, it's
Right.
always been. When I look back to teaching, even at my small home studio, it was women who either were working and made time for it, um, women who were staying home with their children, but had been professionals and really valued taking care of themselves. Another group is going to be in that kind of 30 to 40-year-old postpartum, young kids at
Hmm.
home type. And then we do have a good percentage of men. I would like more men to get on the platform. I think traditionally, yoga has been a little bit intimidating for men. It hasn't been as welcoming, right?
Yeah.
It used to be you would see these ads or these photos, and it was like, wow, I'm never going to be able to do that. Or they come into a class and it's like moving really fast, going to in range of motion. And we really have kind of the antithesis of that. So we do have a lot of men, um, women that have brought their husbands, men that have found us from some other, being an athlete or something. So that is a small percentage of our customers, but we like to grow that as well. But I would say the majority are that, you know, 40 to 65-year-old woman who has, has a graduate or a college or graduate degree and is willing to spend money on themselves.
And from the teacher perspective, those looking to become lit
Mhm.
teachers or interested in that, is that typically someone who's already a yoga instructor of some sort and they're looking to add on additional knowledge and services?
I would say yes. So we have over 1,000 certified teachers around the world in over 65 countries. And of those, I would say a good 40 to 50% were already existing teachers who like had just gotten to a point where they didn't feel confident, didn't feel like they had enough of the education,
Hmm.
were kind of getting burned out or disillusioned, et cetera, because they didn't have that very important. I mean, if you're moving the body and you aren't taught about the body, it's like at some point
Yeah.
that becomes like, it's not just about poses or talking about breathing or philosophy. You've got to actually address the people in the room, and everybody in the room has some differences in their history and their mobility. And that's, again, to be fully inclusive, you want to be able to do that. So then I would say the other percentage of people are kind of curious, not necessarily thinking they want to be teachers, but more curious
Hmm.
for themselves. They have gotten a little bit drunk, a little of the Kool-Aid, really like how it's feeling in their body, and they want to dive deeper. And of those, many will actually end up teaching because they want to teach something that has really improved their lives so dramatically. So those are kind of the biggest pools of people. But yeah, we do get a lot of already existing teachers in our trainings for sure.
I could definitely relate to that last group, the people who are, I'm increasingly intrigued when talking to you. I have a health medical background, but really wellness has always been much more of a thing for me. Like, I became a doctor to actually help people thrive, not give them more medicine. So, the what
Exactly.
you describe is certainly intriguing to me to actually just learn for my own, like
Yes.
physical fitness, and yeah, I can
There
see
you
how that
go.
would be
Take
really,
the training.
really
You'll love it.
appealing.
And
Yeah, I think.
and one of the biggest benefits is our community is real. I mean, think about being surrounded by, even if it's virtual, people who are passionate and energized and curious and supportive. Like that
Hmm.
is that's a hard space to find nowadays. And to do it in this way where you're improving individually but also collectively, kind of growing this vibration. It's tangible, and it's people have become best friends from the teacher training, even if
Yeah,
they live in different countries. Because it's just, you want to be around like-minded, enthusiastic people, and it's a great melting pot of that. So you're
yeah,
welcome
that's
anytime.
cool.
And we have
Community.
doctors, we have PTs,
Yeah,
we have all kinds of professionals who also take it because they want to start adding it to
right.
their.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's get that crystal ball out a little bit. Fast forward 6 to 12 months. I mean, I don't know what your growth plans are, goals, whatever, but if you could, when you look back and you would say, we absolutely nailed it, what would have happened? What would that look like that would get you to that place?
Wow. Well, 6 to 12 months. I mean, I think that, you know, growing our platform is always kind of one of our biggest goals, but there's always these offshoots of that. So I go to a lot of different locations, I do retreats. And
Hmm.
so I think, if I could really nail something, it would be finding a way to um, integrate more of the experience of like an online feeling, whether it's getting some of my teachers to create little offshoots, to expand it. I
Yeah.
never was interested in creating any kind of what is it called? Like McDonald's. What is that? A
A
franchise.
franchise? Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't ever interested in that because I feel like immediately it's really hard to maintain that quality control.
Yeah.
But if I can have more satellites where people get more exposure, and then have kind of this mothership of our platform and our training, we're working on that. We have small pockets of it, but I think that in the next, 12 months, 2 years would be fantastic to do, because I think that would satisfy the the need sometimes for people to want more of an in-person touch, even if it's once a year or once every 6 months,
Right.
and then coming back, because there's so many advantages of online. It's easy, there's like, you don't have to go to a gym, belong to a member, it's just like right there. And then creating that discipline of showing up on the classes. So that would be one thing that just kind of comes to mind. I'm sure I'll think of something else once we're offline. Yeah.
Yeah, you can email me
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But great
Um,
question. Yeah.
uh,
I have to be really, I am such a present person, which is really
uh-huh.
great. Like I'm super present when I'm
Yeah.
present. But the downside is, and all my team is like, okay, Lara, we got to start talking about January 2026. And I can feel the hairs on my spine just go, "Ah." Like it's really
Yeah.
challenging for me, but it's a good
Interesting.
challenge to think ahead. And because you have to set these goals and then try and, execute them. But it's really tough for me to do.
It's interesting because I mean you've trained yourself. I mean it's really what you train others to be is to be very present in the moment. But yet when it comes to, really thinking about growing a business like this is so much of that is about the future,
That could be my
right?
part. I could say that could be
Yeah.
my consistent part, is that
Yeah.
my nature is very much like what is happening now. I can barely think about tomorrow. So people will be like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to, some amazing country on Saturday. How are you excited?" And I'm like, my head is not even there. When I'm on the
Yeah.
plane, I start to feel it, right? So
Yeah.
it's a good thing because again, I'm present for the moment. I'm not thinking all, but it is challenging from a business perspective for sure.
Have you thought about how, and we'll wrap up shortly, but have you thought about how, like, any kind of automation could help with your process or with your train? Especially, I'm kind of thinking more with the training part of the yoga teachers and all of that part of your business. Any automation to connect with and train them?
I think the training would be more challenging because it does have to have such a personal touch to it so that,
Hmm.
in an educational way, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't learn things from an automated system, but I can see in our and what I've thought of doing is like in our platform, having some kind of automation that reaches out to people and has like a formula, like, what are any concerns you have this week or something you'd really like to see, in a way that makes them feel like even if it's an automated thing, they have a chance to express themselves. So
Hmm.
my son is in comp sci, and I was actually talking to him this summer about developing direct messaging text for people on our platform, and then having just kind of a chain of different um, cues or questions that people could engage and in that way feel that in-person experience of being seen, of being heard.
Yeah.
And it could
Yeah.
be with prompts, but so I definitely think that could be incredible so that you're not
Hmm.
just like this little, this vacuum where you're just practicing and on a computer and then turning it off and walking away. But you also have this contact with somebody technically who's on our team who happens to be, like a Alexa
Right. Yeah.
saying, hey, do you, what are you looking for? Do you need some help with selecting some classes or are there any pain points for you? Like pain points are a big thing. And I would say that's like kind of circling back a little bit to our population. I think people come to us there's a need base. Sometimes they'll come out of curiosity, but often it's like, I know that movement is not all equal and movement is not taught in that kind of equal way, meaning that there are more intelligent forms and less intelligent forms. And it
Hmm.
matters to me now. It might not matter to somebody who's in their 20s. They want something cheap, they want to just go to something free, and that's great. But there is a need base for these people who are lived enough that they know, like, I can't just do this willy-nilly and have the same impact. I want to actually really feel good in my body. I want to be fit. I want to look good, but I want to feel good. I don't want to suffer in the process. I don't want to feel like
Right.
I'm endangering myself. And I often say, like, we're practicing today, but we're also practicing for our future selves. And I think so that need base is there. And I think, again, talking to that in an automated way would be also very helpful.
I mean, you just I had these little ideas came when you talk about like it could be like the kind of the chatbot version of Laura, right?
Yeah.
It's still
Totally.
you. It's still you. It's your information. It's your thoughts that are now being delivered to somebody through an automated way to identify what their pain point is and match them with the solution to that, right?
Exactly.
In
Yeah.
your world. So that's a really cool idea that you could absolutely do in an automated, but yet still make it feel personal, right? You don't
Right,
want to
right.
lose
I was
that.
just kind of writing out the things. It was just
Yeah,
automation would be
yeah,
the delivery and the
yeah,
responsiveness instead
eh,
of me
yeah,
individually texting all these people. It could be like
right.
that. Like, I do think that's something we have started a little bit, and then we're just, going to go down that pathway at some point for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so many opportunities for you to get your message out there to many more people, both currently in your platform and not yet. So
Yeah.
just you just have to explore all the little tools and we can talk a little bit more about that. But this has been such a great conversation. I mean, it did not even go anywhere near where I thought it was gonna go. Right.
All right.
Right.
Well,
It's
wonderful.
good.
Anybody that's listening, I would love to offer them a special discount, and I'll give it to you so you can have in your show notes our online platform, 5 weeks for $5. It's a really
Goodness.
easy
That's
spin
great.
to really dive in and start developing those kind of those habits, which we know are very much part of the brain, like just trying it out and getting to see for yourself. So anybody that wants to do that, just check out the show notes and we'll give the link and the code for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think I am definitely going to sign up for that. That sounds like a great way to start
Definitely.
learning a
So
little
you
bit
dive
more
in.
about.
So you
Yeah.
do training at
Well,
some point. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you for being so open and honest and willing to share your entrepreneurial journey and really your as an accidental entrepreneur. I love that. I'm going to start using that because I even say on my LinkedIn profile that I got into it like by mistake or something, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think accidental is
Accidental, I
such
think
the
it's good
perfect
because
word.
when I said
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I only meant it because
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, like we're in the medical field. We don't think of ourselves as,
Right.
and we don't have this, we weren't given the skill set. So, but I think again, if you're curious and interested, you'll learn. And it's been fun. It's also been challenging, but it's been really fun to learn something new that I wasn't trained in at all. Yeah.
Right. And the reluctance is just fear
Oh,
manifesting
totally.
itself, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's all the
Yeah.
self-talk and the
Yeah.
stories of like the lanes that we pick. And it's like, no, no, we can shift. We just have to be willing.
Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for that wonderful offer to me and the listeners because
Yeah.
I think that will be extremely appealing. I know I'm very intrigued and hang around for a minute after we go off and we'll chat a little bit more. Thank you so much. Appreciate you
Thank you so
joining
much,
me.
Michael.
All right.